What's up, YouTube? It's the Action Figure Grader coming back to you with a video. For those of you who are into toy collecting, I'm sure that you have heard of a great channel called Toy Polloi. And if you are a subscriber to Toy Polloi, I would encourage you to go check out a video that he released yesterday about the action figure grading and whether it's a scam or not. And I really enjoyed it because he took a couple of loose graded items that that he already had graded, a Good Morning Guard and a Skeletor, and he broke them out of the cases and then resubmitted them to UKG, which is the British grading company, and resubmitted them to see if they get similar scores. And by and large, they did. The Skeletor came back with a slightly higher paint score, which was interesting. But I thought it was an interesting video, and you know, I'm certainly not trying to ride on his coattails because he's a way bigger channel than me. But it got me thinking about some of the different things that he mentioned in his video that I agreed with, and some of the things I didn't agree with. And but I just thought that I would share my thoughts on it, since that's, you know, I do largely collect graded figures. You know, he's made it known that he does not collect graded figures, and he thinks it's, you know, kind of a scam and things like that. And I get it. I mean, everyone's got their own opinion on grading, and a lot of people don't collect graded figures, and that's cool. I mean, you know, that's the great thing about collecting, is that we all can collect differently. So I do it because I like to have everything authenticated, and at least have someone else's opinion who is much more knowledgeable than me in terms of the condition of toys. I like to have all that stuff labeled and everything, so if I keel over and die or get hit by a bus, my family can sell my collection fairly easily and not have to worry about trying to get fair value for it, since everything's labeled and does have a score of some sort. It'll just make things easier for her, my wife, when I do die, so she can sell everything and fund that Italian vacation I've talked about. When I die, my wife is going to get remarried really quickly to some dude named Chaz, or Terry, or some other lame name, and then take all these action figures, sell them, and buy a Ferrari, and then travel around the world. And that's cool, because I'll be dead, so I won't care. But in the meantime, I'm going to enjoy my graded action figures, and I'm going to still make these stupid videos. But anyway, he got me thinking about the grading companies in general, and I wanted to just talk briefly about I just picked out a couple of random items that I thought were worth talking about. First is grading. Well, you know, this is my figure of shame, all right? So this is the one that I had a video for up that showed me taking this off of a really, really beat up card. And I submitted it for grading before AFA decided to stop doing grading. And I got so much flack for it by the collecting community on Facebook, so I finally took that video down. But this is my U90 graded Bosk. And why am I talking about it? Well, a figure just like this, exact same score, exact same label, a figure just like this just sold on eBay maybe, I don't know, 2-3 months ago, for $635. And this was in an auction format. This was not, you know, a buy it now where somebody overpaid for it. There were a lot of people bidding on it, and it sold for $634. Well, that to me shows you how insane some collectors are with regard to U90 grades. U85s are still, you know, I track prices pretty closely. U85s, they still go for a slight premium versus normal 85s, but U90s have completely skyrocketed in terms of value. If you look at some of the U90s that are selling, they're selling for more than what you could buy a mint or at least a near mint still on card figure, and that is insane to me. I'd much rather have an 80 grade mint on card Bosk for $600 than I would a U90 grade Bosk loose graded for $600. Nevertheless, this exact figure sold for $634 on eBay 2 or 3 months ago. And, you know, so what is that? So what am I really saying here? Well, number one, I think I made the right choice in terms of taking it off the card from a financial perspective. Now, from a collecting perspective, I didn't, because I ruined a figure that was still on the card. Somebody else would have really enjoyed having that on the card. And it's my figure of shame now, because I did this one time and I've taken a lot of flack for it. So I finally took that video down because people just didn't like the fact that I did that. So for those that follow me, just know that I don't do U-graded figures anymore. I don't buy figures on beat up cards and take them off the card or anything like that. There's other collectors that have done that by the thousands. I'm not going to name names, but they're big names in the collecting community that do it. And that's okay. You know, everyone collects differently. Me personally, I think that that's wrong now after, you know, the more I learn about it. But nevertheless, from a financial perspective, I clearly made the right choice because I bought that card for about $150. And now, you know, at least eBay buyers are saying it's worth about, you know, 4 or 5 times that. So anyway, that's the only reason I bring that up. But is this a U90 to you? I don't know. From my perspective, it's not. If you look at the back right here, to me, I think they overgraded this. This is a U85 at best. It's got just a couple of marks. A U90 is a near mint plus figure. And that is, you know, just those 2 marks alone, in my opinion, are enough to mark it down to a U85, in my opinion. But AFA took mercy on me and they gave me a U90. I don't think it's worth that, though, personally. But that's what they said it is. So that's that one. I just picked out a couple of other random ones because I think they tell an interesting story. The next one is my Yps Storm Trooper. Now, I've got 2 of these. I have one that is UKG 80 grade. And the difference between AFA with their loose grading and UKG with their loose grading is that UKG gives you subscores. You know, this one just has a single score, and I'm going to show it to you real quick. Loose action figure Hoth Stormtrooper YPS 85 near mint plus. So they're saying this is a near mint plus figure. Well, as you can see on the torso, it's quite yellowed. Now, whether this happened before it was graded or after grading is a question. I don't know the answer to that since I bought it already graded. But, you know, one of the things that Toy Polloi brought up is that, you know, that he thinks that scores are inconsistent. And what he didn't mention, in my opinion, is that figures can also change over time. This one does not have an upgraded UV case. You know, it'll have archival sticker on there. So it doesn't have 100% UV protection. This is about 67% UV protected right now. So whoever owned this before me very easily could have had a near mint white figure and left it out where it was exposed to sunlight, and it faded over time and it turned a little bit yellow, as you can see on the torso. So in my opinion, this is not an 85 graded figure, and I would wager that if I resubmitted this to AFA, it would come back as an 80 at best. So scores can and do change over time because of figure deterioration, and this is a more obvious example of that. Now, I've got another one that is a UKG graded 80, and those have subscores. You get a figure subscore, a paint subscore, and with the figures with capes, you get a cape subscore. That one was an 80 for the figure, 85 for the paint, and 80 for the cape. And it was a total of an 80, UKG 80. Now, I don't have it here because I submitted it to Collector Archive Services for regrading. And me personally, I think it's higher than an 80. But it'll be interesting to see how it scores. The main reason I sent it in to get scored is because, you know, these YPS Stormtroopers have these alternate weapons. These are only available on the YPS Stormtrooper, and they're kind of a G.I. Joe style weapon. And I like CAS's cases because they have the etched accessory cases, and I want to be able to show that weapon off. So I also wanted to see how the grade would change. So this one is an 85. I don't think it's an 85. It's more of an 80 figure. And the amount I paid supports that. A true 85 YPS Stormtrooper can sell anywhere from $350 to $450 if it's an AFA 85. I paid quite a bit less than that. But I do want to see how the score compares between the UKG 80 and when it comes back from CAS with the new grading case. I bet it'll come back with a higher score. That's my guess. So I'm getting this out there now because I want to see what it comes back with. I bet it comes back with an 80 plus or even possibly an 85. Number one, because I think that it was a very, very nice figure from what I could tell. Obviously, I couldn't play with it because it was encased. But also, CAS tends to grade a little bit higher than UKG or AFA. So it'll be an interesting experiment. It could come back with an 80 again, so we'll see. But I bet it comes back with an 80 plus or an 85. But this is my 85, and so I pointed this one out because, number one, I did resubmit a different YPS Stormtrooper, but also I wanted to just talk about that because Toy Polloi didn't really mention the fact that figures can change over time. And the same is true for figures still on the bubble. You know, he was complaining that if they're still in the case like this, that, you know, figures can drop out of the bubble, and he has like a Chief Chirpa that where the bubble had popped open. Well, that can happen whether it's in a grading case or not, you know. And so I think that's a little bit of a disingenuous argument that it doesn't really protect it. Well, you know, they do offer bubble protection, like you see here with my Luke on the Tri-Logo card. You know, I paid extra to have the bubble reinforced. Now, will this protect the bubble from cracking if I dropped it? Probably not. Probably not. It's really, you know, it's mainly to protect it if the glue should happen to deteriorate such that it could pull away from the card. It doesn't really protect it from dropping. So I think that if I really dropped it hard enough, I think that bubble would still crack. But my point is that it could still crack whether you have it graded or not. You know, bubbles can crack if you're not careful with the figures. These are vintage 40-year-old figures. So to expect an AFA case to protect a bubble from cracking due to rough shipment or due to dropping it, I think is not really what they're designed for. What the grading companies are really designed for is one person's opinion of value or of condition, so you can assign a value to it. The other thing I will point out is that it is, you know, grading. It's not like there's one person grading within these companies. There's multiple graders because they have multiple clients, but they are double checked. UKG, CAS, and AFA do have multiple people checking whatever the original score is that is assigned to make sure that they're not crazy. Now, I've had videos in the past where I question whether that's true or not with some of the scores, especially that UKG came with. But I think all the grading companies make mistakes. All of the grading companies make mistakes, so I'm not just trying to pick on UKG. So, you know, for example, in my opinion, this is crazy. This is a very, very crazy low score to me. This is a Polish bootleg deluxe AT-AT driver, a very, very tough bootleg defined, and they only came back with a 40. And I'm just blown away by how low that score is. And I've looked at this figure from every possible angle. I do not see any cracks in the actual figure. There's no, you know, major damage to the figure. Is it in mint condition? Obviously not. You can tell by the paint. But to assign a 40 score to this figure is crazy. And I think, me personally, I think it's an error on the grader's part that this was, because I had a couple of other 40s in my in that batch, and maybe I'm wrong, but to assign a 40 score for this figure is crazy. This is at worst probably a 60 or a 70. So grading companies do make mistakes, and I think, in my opinion, this is an example of one. There's no way that this deserves a 40 score for this figure. You know, like I said, is it mint? No, obviously not. You can see all the paint rub and things like that. But this is a very tough bootleg to find, and to assign such a low score to that is just nuts to me. So I'd love to know the justification for that score, but I just, you know, I don't particularly care that enough to bitch about it. But every grading company makes mistakes. There's no doubt about that. And grading's not for everyone. Certainly not. You know, I'd certainly understand Toy Polloi's opinions on it, and he makes some valid points. But I do think that, you know, in general, they do their best, and they provide a pretty good service for those of us that like to collect and preserve and authenticate and document what we have. But it's expensive. There's no doubt about that. I've spent a lot of money on grading stuff, but that's just how I've chosen to collect. And so anyway, it's a very interesting video. This is not me bagging on Toy Polloi, obviously, because it's a great video, and I enjoyed it very much. And I'm glad that he took the time and the money to kind of get some items regraded as an experiment. And I've already kind of got that in process myself. Just across, I wanted to just compare across grading companies. So I did submit another Yps Storm Trooper. I also submitted a no COO Luke Bespin that was straight 85s by UKG. It was kind of the older label, and I just wanted to have a cooler kind of display case, and it was like $25 to get it recased. So I'll be curious to see what those two come back with. My guess is that the Luke comes back with an 85 plus, and that the YPS comes back with an 80 plus or an 85. So my guess is that CAS scores will come back a little bit higher than UKG, and that's consistent with everything else that I own from CAS and UKG. You know, AFA is certainly the most stringent. They gave this a 75 plus, which in my opinion was very, very rough. I mean, that's, to me, this is an 80, and the unboxing, I talk about that, but I'm really surprised that didn't come back with at least an 80. But so AFA to me, you know, we've talked about this at length. Blacked Out Ewoks, a fellow YouTubers, talked about this. AFA is the most strict. UKG is probably a notch below that in terms of strictness, and then CAS is probably a slight notch below UKG in terms of strictness. So, but it'll be a fun little experiment, and it'll be fun to compare what kind of scores they got versus what UKG had. Anyway, this is a very random video, but Toy Polloi's great video from yesterday got me thinking about it, so I just thought I would share my thoughts on it. Thanks very much for watching. Talk to you soon.